to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where we showcase authors. We talk about how they wrote their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. We have a we have a Facebook page, The Writer's Dream. Please visit it. If you have any questions, you can ask the questions there, and we'll get back to you. We are also on YouTube. Also, The Writer's Dream. My name is Linda Maria Frank. I'm the author of Annie Tillery Mysteries, and our guest today is Donna Martini, who has written The 10 Commandments of Divorce. Welcome, Donna.
Well, thank you for having me, Linda.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm a wellness activist and coach. And
what does that mean?
A wellness activist is somebody who brings to mind wellness and what wellness is. Okay. Many people don't even understand what the word is, but
what is wellness?
It's a state of being well. How difficult is that? For this country, it's pretty difficult, though. And
I think so.
Yeah, and I've been one of the people who has been the last 10 years speaking about not having a healthcare crisis. We have a wellness crisis. And understanding that we really don't need to use the system as much as we do. We're not taking care of ourselves. And that's basically what I do every day.
Well, that is, well, I think that's even the thrust of Obamacare, is that they want to foster programs that will encourage wellness so that people don't have to take advantage of the MRIs and the CAT scans and all the rest of the expensive tests. Right. So it's a good idea. And how did this get you into writing a book about divorce?
Well, you know, I write about a lot of things. The first book I decided to write was about divorce because I think I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to create a new paradigm. Because right now people don't understand that a lot of our statistics with our children and our adults are stemming from a 50% or more divorce rate. We're not attributing a lot of the unrest in our youth with what's going on in their household. Think of infighting between parents, and think of bullying. Think of the depression rate, cutting, anorexia. All of these things are created by trauma, you know, and not being addressed in a family issue. As a family issue, it's more like an individual issue. There's something wrong with the child, but we're not looking at everything that's going on in a household. So I wanted to show the things that I learned through my divorce about love and forgiveness. That was my focus. And at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. But now, 20 years later, my children have grown up, and they're really beautiful people. So what did I do that worked, and what did I do that didn't work? And see if I can write about it and help other people do it.
So how would you say, there are a lot of books written about divorce, and I absolutely agree with you that divorce is one of the major problems that parents have to deal with. I also am divorced and have a child who, he's not really a child anymore, but who suffered from the experience. So how is your book different from other books about divorce, which tend to, I think, focus on the negative?
I think that's it. And it's funny because I didn't know exactly how different it was because I hadn't read a million books about divorce. I really went out to just talk about what I knew and understood rather than comparing to others. And I've been approached by a lot of men who said that a lot of divorce books are written by very angry women. And so I can understand that. But mine was about love and forgiveness. Mine is about taking responsibility for your participation and bringing in this marriage. And then I'm focusing on the fact that, thank goodness it happened. If you have children, they're a product of that. They were supposed to be here. How can you deny the marriage? So to understand that this is a new beginning rather than, you know, a past that we need to live and dwell in. Let's move forward and let's make it the best family life we can make it. So
then with your own children, how old were they when you divorced?
They were about 12, 13, my son.
That's such a difficult age.
That was the worst. And then my daughter was turning 4, and she actually, I thought, handled it better at the time. But moving forward, I think that she is not as adjusted. She's a little more has more unrest about it than my son, who I guess went through the worst teen years, but then has a beautiful marriage that he's really working hard at. My daughter has more issue, I think, and guilt.
Guilt?
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, they say that children usually take on the responsibility of the divorce. They think it's their fault.
And, well, they do, and especially at a young age, when you don't understand anything, it's more impressionable. She also has a different personality. But she said something to me once that was broke my heart when I was talking to her about how you know, being divorced and having the two different families. And she said, Mommy, I never even knew what a family was. I don't even know the difference. I never had a family, so why would I think I'm missing something?
Yeah.
And
That's
I realized,
a very telling statement, is it not?
I realized, oh my goodness, she's never had mom and dad sitting at the table in the kitchen eating dinner together. There's always been this unrest in her life. And so I think that depending on the child and their personality, each one's going to handle them different. But how we handle it is way more important, because we can sway, you know, their minds and their hearts while they're young.
Well, your unrest and your anger is very damaging to them, I think.
Absolutely.
From my own
energy. It's all about energy and your intention. And if you don't intend to love their other parent, they're going to feel it. Yeah. Absolutely. They cannot live without that feeling. You're tied together. Your cells are connected. Even strangers, when they're sitting in a room, our cells right now are jiving. This is scientifically proven. So can you imagine a parent and a child living day to day and having hatred and anger and unforgiveness? It will absolutely affect the child.
Well, and also the fact, I find that when the children are very young, they don't remember a lot of the stuff that goes on that, you know, would be damaging. But they also don't have a memory, as your daughter pointed out, of a family. And there has to be a certain amount of uneasiness about something that happened that was significant that I don't remember. And maybe that's the issue with her. But so what are, without giving it all away, because you want people to write the book, what are the 10 Commandments of Dora? Give me one.
Well, let's see, the main premise of the book is to not stop loving your co-parent.
Okay.
I think the children don't really understand the difference between parental love and spousal love. So when you say, you know, Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced, we don't love each other anymore, but we still love you, and they're like, what do you mean? You know, because if you can stop loving Mommy, then maybe that means you can stop loving me.
Yeah.
So we have to continue the marital vows. We might go from marriage license to divorce decree, but doesn't mean we have to change the vows to love and honor. I think that's for the sake of the children, they're products of that love. Let's keep the love going. Let's keep the love flowing. Those products aren't going away. They're actually thriving on our love for them. Why not actually show the best of ourselves by trying to find the best in our partner? We married them for a reason. Can we find that again?
I would imagine that you would have to redefine that marital love once there's a divorce.
Well, it's not marital love anymore. It's co-parenting love.
Okay.
Make it whatever you want, as long as it's not negative and it produces positive feelings and emotions to the children and for yourself. Because truthfully, we forgive for ourselves, not for the other person.
Truly. Yeah,
the other person may or may not accept it. It doesn't matter. It's still what we're giving out and we're giving forth and how we're healing ourselves. Because any anger, you will not have room in your heart for love if you have anger in it, you know, and unforgiveness in it. So going forward, do you really want to carry that into your next relationship and your next relationship, or do you want to have just goodness, be the best parent you can possibly be? And you don't need the cooperation from the other parent. A lot of times we don't have it, and people don't realize there's an 80% of divorces are really one-sided. One person wanted, the other person didn't. Only about 20 of them are on the same page. Of course, going forwards, a lot of people will accept, even if they didn't want it.
That's my next question to you, is how do you convince, for instance, you just said something that I think is very significant, that only one parent has to have this co-parenting love. But if you're not getting any cooperation, in fact, you're getting a lot of negative feedback from the other parent, how do you overcome that?
Well, the idea that you may not have control over another person's actions, but you so have control over the energy between the two of you. So we can always make things worse. So what we're trying to do is make things better. And believe it or not, studies show that at least one parent is consistent and showing love and showing the right way to live. Sometimes the other parent is showing what not to do better than anything. And that a child sees a dichotomy, and they will want to gravitate towards the love and goodness. So you may not ever be able to overcome certain things. And I see it because I coach couples and I coach individuals, and I see what they're up against. But I also see that when you're consistent and you don't stop your intention to love and to forgive, the children soak it up, they suck it up, and eventually I see the change, and we do see the change in the other person. It's not about you manipulating them. It's about you manipulating the energy between the two of you. And eventually, if they don't have anything to attack, if there's nothing there that they can grasp onto, they stop.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's
Yeah, I of course I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I think it's all well and good, but I think in terms of the experiences I've had, the people I know, and I think of some of the most difficult cases, and I think it is usually that one parent who really soldiers through the whole thing and does the best that they can, and but the other factor is the child. Now, you said you do coaching.
Yes.
And how does that work?
Well, anyone who comes to me, I don't charge for my services. I'm a pro bono coach. It's all about the love, and it's very serendipitous how people come to me. So if they come to me, they're already willing and ready. They want to move forward in a positive light. They want to see ways they can do it. And most people who come to me are they're like newborns to this, because who goes through a divorce every day? And they want to know, how do I move forward? What's my intention? How do I create the goals? And how do I work this? And it's all about, like I said again, energy. And understanding that whatever you're thinking and feeling is going to move forward. And if you're not finding out the reasons why you literally ended up in this marriage and got divorced, you're going to bring that back into your life over and over again. You're going to constantly blame the other person. It's not about blame. It's about taking responsibility. So we literally sit and we figure out. We don't go over the past. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. We don't talk about what was. We talk about what is and what we want moving forward. And I try to extrapolate the goodness from the person and their strengths. We work on those. And then we sort of find what may be not working for them and go about ways to heal it. And it's always different for every person. We have the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual. And I talk about it in the book. What state is your body in? That's going to dictate what's going on in your mind.
Sure.
And in your heart, believe it or not, because your emotions, they're not right or wrong, but are they real? Sometimes, we're energized by food, and food can dictate negative moods just as well they could positive. So we take responsibility for every aspect of our life, and we start to change what we're bringing in, what we're attracting, and the energy that we're sending forth.
Okay, now you've written this book, and you say that you also do coaching, but the people come to you pretty serendipitously.
Yes.
How does that happen? How do you advertise? How do you get this book out there and get people interested in it, and then have the feedback, having them come to you? How do you do that?
Well, right now, the book hasn't been out that long, so I'm still exploring. I have found that it's getting amazing reviews from experts. I have counselors, mediators, attorneys, judges. Okay. The people who need to read it aren't as motivated. It's very difficult to take responsibility for everything that's happened to you, especially when you feel you've been wronged. The motivating factor is the children. And I really think that it's going to be better to be recommended. So attorneys are recommending it, counselors and therapists, psychologists, mediators. And I even have a judge who's actually a local judge from Suffolk County who was the matrimonial judge for Christy Brinkley in her last trial. And he read the book and rave reviews and said, this should be a mandatory read for every couple going through the divorce process. And I had that as a dream. I really wanted it to be something that people can do at the very onset. A parent who sees their child going through divorce, like you say you have a son who's older, if he's going through a divorce, and you would want him to start out in the best way he could for the sake of your grandchildren. Honey, this is what you need to read. A co-parent who wants to do it the right way but may not have cooperation from the other co-parent, handing the book saying, this is the way I'd like it to be between the two of us. So we're both taking responsibility for getting it here. A child, a teenage child who's going through it and seeing what their parents are doing and saying, Mom, you got to read this. This is the way I want it to be for us.
Well, I think schools, because most of the schools, I know in middle school, I taught for many years, so most of the schools have a group through the guidance department where they talk about divorce. They talk about going through divorce. And that's a wonderful place to put this book, because this is something that if the kids can understand and then pass on to the parents, because that's another factor in divorce, is the personality of your child or your children determines how much they're going to soak up and how much they're not. In my own experiences with kids, some kids are devastated by their parents' divorce. It takes them years to get over it. Other kids, it's like, that's their life, especially in the teen years. They kind of block it out because
I think they're blocking
teens are very self-absorbed.
Yes.
And maybe later it comes up, but there's all kinds of different reactions from kids too. So
I hear a lot from the children. I wish my parents would have gotten divorced because all they did was fight. I do hear every end of the spectrum, and like I said, I'm not a therapist or a counselor, so that's not my expertise. I see though the detrimental effects it has on their body, on their persona, and in their schoolwork, and how they are affected by the general intention. It's just really intention. It's if the parents say, we want the best divorce we can have, we want the best family life for our children going forward, just saying that is enough to literally help the children. If one person doesn't care, if somebody's seeking their happiness and getting a divorce without thinking about what they're doing to their children, that alone, that selfish kind of attitude is enough to break a system and break a child's persona.
Well, I think that people like you bringing these kinds of things to the forefront make a difference because I would say 20, 30 years ago when people divorced, first of all, divorce was not as accepted. Go back 40 years. It was not as accepted. You just, no. There was a stigma attached to it. There's not so much of that today. There's more of an idea that it's better to get out of a bad marriage than to stay there because that's detrimental to the kids too.
Right.
But that attitude of having a stigma attached to a divorce, you almost took the kids and kind of pushed them aside, didn't talk to them about it, because that's how you sheltered them in those days. Today, the attitude's very different, and I think it's important that you bring it out and you have workshops and you have books and get everyone talking, because once they start talking, at least there's some communication.
Well, there's a lot of energy in my book based on the shame aspect because my mother came from a divorced family in the 40s. They were divorced.
Yeah.
She was just a child. And my Nana, the way she handled her divorce was really absolutely beautiful. And she was just such a champion. And she did not ever speak harshly of my grandfather. And I think that really saved my mom and her sister. Although the shame attached made it very hard for me because when it came time for me to get a divorce, my mother didn't want to know anything about it because she was petrified of what it would do to my children. So I suffered much longer in my relationship trying not to upset my mother, believe it or not.
Sure.
And so I think it created so much upheaval in my life because of her shame and what was attached. Not that I blame her in any way, shape, or form, but the idea is that, no, there isn't shame attached. There's still trauma, though. There's still all the rest of it that goes along with it. And if we don't establish a new paradigm for the family, a restorative, family unit, then we're going to still see the statistics attached.
Oh, I agree with you, absolutely. It's attitude change, and
Yes.
that's what you're doing with this book.
Yes,
It's an attitude
it doesn't
change.
have to be bad.
Well,
And
it doesn't have to be so acrimonious.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be adversarial. In fact, Judge Pastoressa, the gentleman I told you about, the judge, loves the book so much. I mean, he puts a lot of responsibility on attorneys for making it worse, but really it's stemming from the co-parents who are looking to challenge as well. If they weren't willing to challenge, then they would be going for mediation and they wouldn't need the attorneys and the courtroom and everything else. They'd be looking to settle. So the idea is that one is making the other worse, but it starts with you, an individual, meaning
Absolutely.
us, as an individual and what we will intend moving forward.
Well, I knew someone who told me about a divorce where the lawyer would not take the woman's case because she refused to go for blood. She refused to go for every blessed penny or however it was.
So it
she
wasn't
said, I
worth
don't
his
want to
time.
do that.
It wasn't
She
worth
said,
his time.
I want to have a fair divorce. He wouldn't take the case. So, there are a lot of factors here that you have to navigate through. And aren't some lawyers, I'm not sure of this, but aren't some lawyers running like pre-divorce clinics?
We have some great attorneys out there who are trying, who see the system, who probably went through a divorce themselves and understand how the system is not working. It's very broken. But the idea is, though, that if you have the right intention, you're going to choose the right attorney. And you're going to go forth and you're going to attract one who's going to help you to settle faster and make sure that you're not hurting the other person. We don't want to see another person broke, and a co-parent broke. We don't want the children to see the lopsidedness of money. We want everybody to be happy and healthy because everything is affected.